Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another live with Cheeky Joe and me, Lady Lexi. And we are so excited to be here again. So it's a little bit weird because in Europe we haven't changed timelines yet or time zones. So we are still in winter time. But since we usually schedule it on US time, we decided to go 1 hour earlier. So it's at the same time you are used to when you are in the US. So I don't know about people who are outside of the US, and I mean also outside of Europe. But we did our best living up to the Pacific and the Eastern time. So today we are going to talk about how to live through trauma by watching One Chicago. And Joe, do you happen to have the statement there by any chance?
Statement.
Yeah, we wrote down a statement. Yeah, so I will do it on top of my head. So if you watch One Chicago really closely or shows, it can actually help you uh, process trauma. That's
Yeah,
basically, I
yeah,
believe, what it was. My phone
yeah.
is
It's
charged. Yeah, so I
basically
can.
about trauma and how it can
Yeah,
sort of affect you or help you, depending on the situation and how you are at the time when you watch these programs. But they can be so true to life,
yeah,
and I connect with many on Chicago PD and Chicago Med quite a lot.
yeah. So
So
Chicago is the umbrella, and it includes Chicago Fire, which started first, Chicago PD, which was the spin off, and then we had Chicago Med. So, PD, of course, about detectives, um, police officers, Chicago Fire, the firefighters out there, and the paramedics, and Chicago Med is about the hospital. So, we decided to do this um, because, well, I know Joe through, well, she's posting about Hank Voigt, who is a character in Chicago PD. And just recently, I took over a couple of times for her, pitching in, posting some short reels and some pictures on there. And I wanted to explain to people what the connection is between um, me posting about Hank Voigt, or better yet, Jason McGay, who's the actor posing as Hank Voigt, and what I do when it comes to speaking out and giving people a voice. And that's basically what we're going to talk about in this show. We have a mutual appreciation, Cheeky Joe and I, for Jason Begay. And one of the reasons is, um, well, maybe I should go back a little bit, and then Joe, I'll ask you to join me, or to pitch in on what I'm saying. So I remember when I started watching Chicago Fire, that I became curious, who is this guy who's playing Hank Voigt? Because in Chicago Fire, Hank Voigt is the bad guy, and then we get to watch Chicago PD, and then the, the the mindset, or the view we as viewers have when it comes to Hank Voigt totally changes. We get to understand why he's doing what he's doing, and that he's doing the wrong things for the right reasons. Um, so I wanted to know who the guy was. So who's Jason Gaze? He liked this Hank Voigt character, and that's why I started watching some interviews. And that's how I came in contact with the page Joe has about Hank Voigt and Jason Begay. Basically one and the same. And I guess I'm going to give it to her. So you can now, because you know him, you've known him way longer than I did. Um, but I do know that you helped me answer some questions by posting interviews, links, all that other stuff. And well, for me, it was a big surprise. He was totally different. So you've known him 21 years. So
Yeah,
now
21
let's
years. I've been a fan.
hear,
Yeah. Yes, will be 22 years this November. I followed him. I actually became a fan on November 21 years ago. I went on a date with my late husband, Keith, and we went out for a meal, and I just wasn't interested, you know. And he said, "Oh, do you want to come back to mine? My friends give me a movie, and it's really good." And I went, I said, "Look, come back to mine." I said, "Because I can send the babysitter home." So, you know, so he came back to mine. I don't normally do, but he was so adamant to watching this movie. And so I looked at it and it said Monkey Shines. I was like, oh my God, it's about a monkey. It's going to be really boring. Oh, and wow, it wasn't boring. It was such an amazing film. And that's when I was like, first saw Jason. And it was,
do
oh
we
my
do we
God,
want to
this
get
man, it's all about a monkey and the things he does with his monkey, because I watched videos where he taught the monkey to throw things. And in one of the interviews, he said he was teaching him to throw, and all of a sudden, it threw something he's caught in his mouth. It was one of the monkey's little boos. And he said, and it was,
so,
and
so for those
he
who don't know,
played, yeah,
maybe we should explain what Monkey Shines is about.
yeah, I was
Uh,
going to just, yeah,
so Monkey Shines is about a quadriplegic. Gee,
quadriplegic,
yeah,
quadriplegic, who
he's
has
paralyzed.
an accident. He gets hit by a car. Yes.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the show, you see him, and I mean, I've seen a lot of people, and a lot of people have worked out, a lot of men, but I was impressed by actually what he was doing, because what he was doing wasn't easy, and I should know. I spent a lot of time in the gym. But he gets in this wheelchair, and that's where the monkeys come in, and what Joe was talking about, because the monkeys actually help him to cope with daily life. And and here's the thing: if you see him play the role, you also see several sides of him. But the fact that he knows how to portray it, that's genuinely impressive. So you continue on. Just want to
Yeah.
tell the people
Yeah.
what it was about.
Yeah, the film was really, really good. Obviously, yeah, as you said, he played a paraplegic, and to play a part like that is hard. Not can't be easy. Playing in a wheelchair and pretending to be somebody you're not, you know, especially with disabilities, because obviously you know what it's like. And my husband, at one point before he passed, it was like, you know,
Yeah, for those
and
who do not know, I've not been able to walk on 2 feet for 6 7 years. So yeah, I know what it's like to be in a wheelchair, and pretty soon I get to be in a wheelchair for a night. It's not entirely my favorite pastime, but it was either no concert tickets or one of those, and my surgeon approved. So yeah, but I did wheel around in wheelchairs through cities, including Barcelona and Spain. So yeah, I do know a thing about it, and that's why I have a show with Michael on Mondays, Focalize So You'll Rise. Um, but yeah, it's true what Joe says. The mere fact that you can put yourself in a situation where you actually can't use your arms and legs. And what Joe doesn't realize is I've had many problems when it comes to my joints. So it's actually a problem with my ligaments, but it reflects to not being able to do something. So I know what it's like to not be able to open anything, not to cut meat, not to open a bottle of milk or whatever it is, and be dependent on other people to give things. So even nowadays, if you would see me push a chair to the table, I'm likely to do it with the lower part of my body and not use my hands. So not being able to use something, and I had two hands I couldn't use at the same time. It's not that unfamiliar for me, and well, that applies to the rest as well. So yeah, it's challenging, but it was convincing, and I do believe that just like who was it again? Superman. Chris, help me.
Christopher Reeve,
Christopher
he got
Reeve.
fell off a horse, yeah,
Yeah.
broke his
So
back.
he,
Same as
well,
Jason. He had that car accident, but he was how he managed to walk. I
yeah,
don't
but
know.
it's the
It,
movie before he had a car accident,
mm,
and still he managed to play that role. Okay, so go back, please. But I sometimes need to fill in some things because otherwise people are like,
I'm saying that. Yeah, as he was playing a character in a wheelchair, which was really, really good for him to portray a part like that is very hard. And we watched the movie and it was just absolutely amazing. And I just literally fell in love with this actor. I was like, oh my God, he's just amazing. Who is this guy? You know, so it was like, oh my God. So I was, his name stuck in my head, and then started watching other programs that he was in, like small parts in certain, like, um, he done a series with To Have and To Hold, which was a love, like he was a lawyer. His wife was a lawyer, and he was a police officer, and it was sort of, you know, it tends to play a lot of police officers for some reason, but he does play them pretty well, I must say. He's really good at that. And I just
yeah,
started watching him, following him, you know, for many years, and back to that night, the movie, when Keith left, I was like, I'm going to marry that guy. He's my guy. Marry him. And I know I am. And I did. And it was like, you know, we got married a year and a half later, and it was just mad, you know, really, really, really weird. And if he hadn't have had that movie from his friend, I probably wouldn't have seen him. I wouldn't have married him. I wouldn't have, you know, done anything. I wouldn't have been with him. And it's really weird because that's why I admire Jason so much as well, because it's like he brought me and him together. It's like it was meant to happen. I know people don't believe in stuff like that, but I always believe in things happen for a reason, you know. And yeah, so watching that show was just absolutely amazing. His acting skills just so fantastic. And I could never understand why he was never really given proper long feature roles, because he's such a talented guy, you know. I mean, like G.I. Jane, he was really good in that, but he didn't have enough role in it. He should have had more in the program because his acting skills again. You know, all his series he's done, and you know, he's just really just one fantastic guy. And obviously, 21 years I've been following him, and then he went into the main role, CPD Hank White, which we all know that he started off in Chicago Fire. He was actually quite a dirty cop. He was after Casey due to an accident where his son was driving a car under the
yeah.
influence of alcohol.
Casey
So
is
Casey
fire.
is a firefighter, and he wanted to press charges basically because he was under the influence, and the father and son in the other car, the son ended up paraplegic due to the accident,
Yeah. So hang,
and
because you're going a little bit
Hank
quick.
was going,
Joe, for a sec. So in the episode we're talking about, the son of Jason, or Hank Voight in this case, is drunk driving. So he causes an accident, and in that accident there's someone who gets paralyzed from the neck down. Um, and Casey confronts him with that, like, okay, what are you doing? You need to know what this means for the other one. Okay, so continue on. And
yeah,
for those who
and
are pitching in, we are talking about how um, series on TV, specifically from One Chicago, are are can help us to live through trauma. Yeah. Okay. So go on.
Yeah, so Hank obviously starts tormenting Casey, threatening him to say, look, I want you to stop the case so my son don't go to prison. He was young. I know he was drinking. It shouldn't have happened because he met Casey in a bar, and Casey was like, well, you know what he did to the other family. And he was like, yeah, I know what he done. He said, but my son, you know, if he goes to prison, things can happen to him, like rape and things like that. And he said, no, I don't want that for my son. But Casey was like, well, I'm sorry, but I can't do that because of it's lying. And he did do injustice. So then he pulls his girlfriend over at night, saying she stop sign, and then he threatens her to basically him, you know, your boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes to a fire where a guy is doing graffiti on the wall. So they get them down, and Voight pulls up and basically starts threatening Katie again and saying, oh, by the way, your girlfriend spoke to a very nice lady last night. Yeah, she seemed a little bit nervous or something like that. So Katie gets angry. So Chief Bowden of the firefighter said, right, you need to go home. He said, can't work, just go home. Just go home. So he goes home with his girlfriend and have a knock at the door. And there's two a policeman and a policewoman. We've got a warrant to search your home because apparently you've got drugs. So obviously the girlfriend's hers, so she's in the kitchen and she finds a big stash of dope underneath the kitchen
Do we want to
unit.
spoil it all? Do we?
Yeah,
Oh, we do.
people have already watched it. It's been out for years.
As
And
it leads to the trauma and all that stuff, right?
yeah, and it's, you know, it's basically just threatens them, and then in the end they get someone to wear a wire and they actually capture Voight and he ends up going to prison. And it was bye Voight.
So,
And then CPD happened and he
yeah,
was back. Oh,
he got introduced in Chicago Fire.
yeah.
So, for me, Chicago Fire played a very important role when it came to a client of me having committed suicide. And, um, you know, every time they go out to a fire, they there's this certain moment that they can't go in anymore because it's too dangerous. The building might collapse. So of course, in the series, you get to see at some point how Chief Bowden, Joe introduced him, got burned in the fire, and you get to see all those moments that they have to make this decision: are we going in or are we not going in? And the people who are watching and whose relatives are sometimes their kids are in the fire, they are so furious when they do not go in, but they don't know the hard decisions people have to make. And also, you know, seeing how they deal with those losses, because even when they make the decision, that doesn't mean that it's easy for them to process it. On the contrary, and you see it over several episodes what it does to the firefighters and paramedics when they are not capable of saving someone. But they also, and they keep repeating this, is that they cannot be held responsible for what is happening over there. I mean, they didn't start a fire. It's as simple as that. And for me, I had to, you know, come to terms with, okay, I didn't drive my client to suicide. It was her choice, you know, to commit suicide. And as someone said just recently, she's probably in a better place right now. I've always seen it from the viewpoint like, oh my God, she was amazing. and we all loved her, and it's a loss for the world that she's not there anymore. And but when he said it's actually better for her, she decided this consciously. It wasn't the first attempt, and this one she did really well. There was no way of rescuing her. Um, that despite the trauma she left behind for a lot of other people, um, it was important to realize that this was not our decision. We didn't do this. And watching Chicago Fire really helped me to see it. So then, of course, I got interested in the whole interaction between Chicago PD and Chicago Fire. And then we get a little bit to, well, not the discrepancy between Jason Begay and Hank Voigt, but actually, yes, the discrepancy, because what I found out, and Joe can probably enlighten you on that, is that Jason Begay is actually a very smiling person. Lots of smiles, always cheerful, always in for a prank. Whereas the role he plays, Sergeant Hank Voigt, he's always, almost always, like moody. And, sometimes you can see the smile on his face, especially when it involves helping out kids. Um, and of course, when it involves his loved ones. But yeah, normally it's yeah, you can see it. So let's continue on, because for me those two sides are important. And when it comes to trauma, we'll continue on later on. But what do you want to say about the two opposite sides for now?
Right, for me, it's Chicago Med and Chicago PD. Chicago Med was the COVID situation. That was one of the hardest. What that really, really
Do you want to
touched
explain?
me. Yeah. I'm going to get to that. That was one of the hardest to watch. As of Easter Sunday 2020, I lost my husband to COVID. And watching them film in the hospital with the patients and how they adapted to it, and it was just so real life, because that's how it was when I went to see my husband for literally 10 minutes, which is all I could have, just to see him, and knowing that I ain't gonna see him no more, and knowing that he was gonna die anytime. And it was watching that program literally, and the same as Grey's Anatomy as well, because they did a very good part as well for COVID, and a program called Casualty in the UK as well. So them specific at the time was really, really emotionally and very hard, traumatic for me and my family to watch. But I
Yes.
watched them because it was upsetting, but it was nice to see them portray what was actually going on in real life. That's what's so good about these programs. Chicago one season series, they're all so good. They do everything that's actual. Majority, 80% is
Yeah,
real
so to
life.
clarify it a little bit, when Joe's husband, Lay's husband, was in the hospital, first of all, she couldn't really say goodbye. And depending on where you were in England, you could either not see him at all, or you could. So Joe was video calling him, and when she visited him in the end, she was actually wearing what I call a spacesuit, but of course it's all the protective gear. So maybe you can share a little bit about
Yeah.
that part.
I was given 10 minutes exactly. That's all I was allowed, because he was at home with me at the time when he went in. My children couldn't go, which was really devastating for them, because it was their dad. They couldn't say goodbye. So I went to the hospital. I had everything on. They let me in the room for a couple of minutes. I couldn't touch him. All I could do was quickly, literally hold his hand because I had gloves on for 30 seconds. He was talking and he was alert, but obviously he had respiratory problems. His breathing was really, really bad. He was catching every breath he was trying to talk. But obviously I had to keep myself sane. I couldn't cry because I didn't want him to see me upset, which was so hard, very hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And obviously the 10 minutes just went bang and I had to go. I was forced to leave my husband who was dying. I had to get out of there. And as I came out, I took my stuff off, mask and gloves and everything, and I happened to look up and there was a bay window and he was laying there and he stared at me and I could see this one teardrop coming down his eyes. And I think he knew. He knew he was going to go. He knew because the way he was talking to me about the children, how much he loved them. But I had to hold it together because I couldn't let him in. And that's the hardest thing. Was to actually see him the last time with a teardrop. And I know many, many other people went through it, and it's just traumatizing because you live with that. That's the last image I had of him, and I knew I was never going to see him again. And watching like One Chicago, it brought me some sort of comfort, you know, just watching it because it actually went on and it was just so many memories and watching what they were doing and how they were treating the patients and how they had to protect themselves and trying to save lives and it was just so traumatic watching it because I see it all when I was there, and watching and seeing what the nurses and doctors had to go through, losing these patients every day, like one after the other, and trying to save them. How devastating for them. And the characters, I tell you, I give them the due. They played it so well. They were absolutely amazing how they did it because it must have been hard for them to portray a part like that, knowing that it's actually going on in the world and it's happening at that time, and people losing people knowing that.
So I don't know if people remember this, but during that time we had the clapping, which was at 8 o'clock our time for all the nurses and all the staff in the hospital for doing their job. It was hard work. A lot of people got ill during that time because they had to pull double shifts. Their normal job wasn't normal anymore. So everyone got asked to help out on the COVID ward.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
normal jobs were done anymore, and so the normal surgeries were over and done with. It was totally chaos and hectic. And what really struck me were two things. One was the hard choices they had to make. Okay, we only have a limited amount of machines. Who are we going to save? Okay, when are we going to ask someone to join? Because there were only a limited amount of people were allowed in the hospital because they were afraid that if you would get into the hospital, you would get in contact with COVID, and then you would transfer it to other people. So you would spread it again. So that's why, of course, you weren't allowed there. But especially April in Chicago Med, you can see her making those choices every time. Like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And sometimes it seems cold and harsh, but it made it more understandable, the reality. And also, um, the clapping when someone actually recovered and basically survived it. And for me, it was mind blowing to see that so many people out there, including here in the Netherlands, didn't believe COVID was real, and they
Oh
didn't
yeah,
believe.
there's still many people still. People
Yeah,
have said it to me, and
yeah,
it's so hurting. And I'm like, really? Okay, that's your opinion. I
yeah,
never get into arguments because I don't see the point. Because you'd
yeah,
never get through to them. It's just the way they are, isn't it? Everybody has their own opinions,
yeah.
and
That's why this was so. I mean, them showing what was going on, and all the things they had to go through, all the struggles they had, they actually made it visible for the world to see, like, okay, this is what we're doing. We have to get changed. Yeah, we actually have all those spots here right on our faces because of the masks. So I think it also showed in um, the resident. You could see it. You could actually see the marks on their faces.
yeah. My friend, a neighbour, she's a nurse. She used to come home. She ended up with blisters around
Yeah,
here because I had to wear the mask, like 3 of them in a shield, and it was awful. So many used to collapse in there. She collapsed a few times, especially when it was hot,
yeah,
and trying to do all the work they were doing. I applaud them. I tell you, they are amazing people, all these medical staff, because what they done, it's
yeah.
amazing.
And that's why it was so nice to actually see on the shows, whether it was Resonance or Grey's Anatomy or Chicago Med, to see how they were celebrated, but also how they celebrated survivors. And just to fast forward to now, of course, we still do have COVID. We pretend it isn't there, but and here's the thing: so almost everywhere, most of the things are over and done with. So over here, we don't have to keep distance anymore. We don't have to wear any facial masks. There's no Corona check app to use. So they still, of course, want people to be vaccinated as much as possible, including booster. And yes, we still can get a test. So they prefer that you get your home test first, and then if it's positive, you go get the official one, the PCR test. Well, in my case, I recently got COVID. That's what you're still hearing. So when you hear me sniffing and all that stuff, that's the result of I think I got it like a week and 2 days ago as a result of finally being able to go to nightclubs, and again after 10, I didn't know I was entering what is in retrospect a corona pool. And I'm lucky because I've been vaccinated. I got my booster and I've got my medication daily. So I've got this, which is for my breathing, and I've got something else for my nose, which are basically inflammation. Uh, well, they dampen they basically kill the inflammation, or they lessen it at least. So it's made a big difference. So yes, I do have the after effects, as you can tell, but I can at least go out again. But it made me wonder about all the quarantine guidelines. And having said so, Joe got COVID too, a little longer ago than I did, and she has a totally different experience. So please listen to her story for a sec.
Yeah, it was in the beginning of February. I went out for my friend's birthday, just to a local pub. Um, as you could tell, because I posted the pictures, didn't I? And came back on the Sunday, and on the Monday I had a bit of a headache. My nose was sort of running a bit, so I thought, oh, just a bit cold, nothing to it. And Tuesday I was, oh my God, my body ached, and my head all round here, pain. Ooh. So I did 4 tests, done 4 in one day. They all come up positive. No, they were negative, first of all. Then I thought, oh, it's probably not COVID, so I'll order a PCR test. I ordered that in, but on the Wednesday morning, I did another test at home, and straight away it came up positive. And I did another 3, and they all turned positive. So I thought, here we go. Then I ended up taking a PCR test, so that came back positive. But I really did get affected. I passed out a few times. And my breathing, I've never ever had breathing problems in my life, and it was kind of scary. And obviously, I had to go to the hospital 3 times, and I hadn't been back to the hospital since my past. So that was very traumatic. Going into the hospital, I started having anxiety because I'm thinking, oh my God, this is what happened to my husband. Am I going to come out? Am I going to, am I going to end up like my husband? My kids are going to be left homeless and no parents. And it was really scary. And I kept seeing my husband in my head again. It was really traumatic because I had to be on my own because obviously I had COVID. But luckily, one of the nurses sat with me and actually managed to calm me down. Saying, it's okay. She said, she said, you're breathing. She said, you're struggling, but it's not severe. She said, it's obviously where you're so bunged up, your lungs can get sometimes filled a bit because of the COVID. She said, but they're not at a point where it's dangerous. So they put me on a nebulizer. They issued me with a pump, 2 pumps, a brown one and a blue one. She said, take them home. She said, obviously, if you feel you can't cope, then come back. Obviously, I had to go back again. And it was another traumatic experience, but it was just like, I was like, I don't believe this. It was just, I felt like things were getting worse and worse and worse. And just cope with it. And then on the 3rd time, a friend came with me, which was a bit more relaxed. I thought she's managed to sort of calm me down. And you was going to ring me up, wasn't you, if I had to go again? Because
Yeah,
obviously
they said we need to
the
talk.
trauma of it, it's, yeah, and you don't realise what trauma does to you when something like that. Walking in the
Yeah, and the
hospital,
moment that
it's terrifying.
the hospital, I knew this was for you going to be very hard,
Mm.
that you were going to relive all those experiences. So that's why I asked you, is someone there with you? And of course, there wasn't because you're not allowed.
No, yeah, it wasn't allowed.
So that's why I said, please ring me day or night, doesn't matter. But we need to make sure that you're coping with this because I know you're, and we could actually witness it just now, that you're still grieving about your husband. And all those people who were saying, "Oh, that Omicron variant, it's nothing. It's a walk in the park." Um, yeah, just listening to you, I was like, "Well, it's not a walk in the park. You got 3 times. You got antibiotics. You got all the puffers. I consider this a puffer, so this is
Yeah.
this is a combination of what you got actually."
And I'm never ill. I'm never ill. I've got
Yeah,
such a high, strong antibodies in me. I'm never ill. I never get coughs. I've never had sickness bugs. I'm never. If I
yeah,
ever get a cough and a cold, it's a day. But that
and that's
really
the
hit me.
and that's basically the opposite for me. So this December, I was in a bad place really. I had these headaches. It was hurting, like you said, the cheekbones and all that stuff, and here in my head. And then later on, I had these dizzy spells, and it lasted actually till somewhere in February. Um, yeah, making it hard for me to work out because I like to do the boxing at the physical therapist, but I just couldn't because it took too much of a toll on me. And having said so, the symptoms are gone. So my extra symptoms were sneezing, and I had a very dry throat. You actually lost your smell too, right? And
I've still got no taste properly now, and my sense of smell is still really bad.
yeah, I heard that from multiple people, and it actually can last for a very long time. What people don't realize is that I still have a major headache. I'm just used to having those headaches because it's also allergy season. The birch trees are blossoming. I'm highly allergic for birch trees, so I can just walk past it and then instantly I'm out of breath. Um, but there's a difference. I'm used to it, so
Yeah.
it's not like it's a walk in the park. but it's also not uncommon for me. So those few days that my temperature was a little bit off, I knew, okay, this isn't good. And of course, the sneezing was different than normal. Normally, I sneeze too, but it was totally different, different experience. So going back to you, because I was actually sort of done with the symptoms within 6 days, but the after effects are, I'm still suffering from that after effects. So, but you, that's a whole different ball game. So let's continue with you.
Yeah. So obviously I started having breathing problems, but luckily at the moment things have started to sort of calm down a bit. But
So the headaches.
sleeping, yeah, I still get headaches now and again. Yeah, headaches now and again. And I feel like, like when you get sinuses.
Yes.
I've never had sinuses, so I was told by the doctor it sounds like you're suffering from sinuses now due to the COVID, because I never knew what it was, never
We
had
all
it.
have, but you
And
maybe
the pain, all here and here, and it's, sometimes it really hurts. I'm like, wow, I've never, dealt with that before, so I've never known what it was like.
you
And
know.
having that breathing as well was scary because I've never had breathing.
Yeah. Well, I've had pneumonia, so I already said to people, "Have you ever tried or experienced pneumonia?" And said, "If you haven't, I had to stay. I had to sleep sitting up straight for like at least 4 weeks. I think it was more, and it was 2015, and I remember this very well because they didn't believe that my ankle wouldn't heal on its own, and because of the pneumonia I had back then, I couldn't walk. So they allowed me to actually take the cast off, which was there to keep me from immobilizing my foot. So when I got back to the hospital, they said, "Yeah, see, it worked." And I said, "Well, we'll talk again in 2 weeks." And then I came back in 2 weeks. And there I was, hopping on the crutches again. And I said, "See, it didn't work." And then it was 2 weeks later after that that they actually scheduled a surgery for me. But knowing what effect can be when you can't breathe properly and the pain it can have, because I remember actually spitting up those little tiny things which look like macaroni, which isn't good if you cough them up, I can tell you. And I was burning up by then, and I know now how to avoid burning up because I can do it quite easily. But yeah, it's and that's why I had a little bit of problems with people just waving it goodbye. Nah, that's not that bad. But we are talking about how this helps processing trauma. So of course, going back in there, also having watched what was going on, did help you a little bit, but that wasn't the end of it. So maybe you can continue on because we know how your husband passed away. So your husband was in the hospital. Your kids were not allowed to see him, um, and you had like 10 minutes. You also shared with me that another friend of yours only got to see her husband literally on the iPad or the tablet or whatever they were using. She couldn't even give him a proper goodbye. It was
No,
like,
because he was in a coma, so he wasn't talking or nothing. He was
yeah.
literally chewed up and everything.
So while you were still recovering from COVID, something else happened with your mom. Well, actually, it already started before you fell ill to COVID. So you want to share? Or do you want me to go on?
Yeah, yeah, she was diagnosed with pancreatic and liver cancer before Christmas, November before December, towards the end of November, beginning of December. She had a couple of rounds of chemo, but unfortunately, she caught DVT, deep vein thrombosis, and that really made her very ill. So she was in and out of hospital, and 2 weeks prior to when she was last admitted, I was talking to her on video calls. Obviously, my mum lives in Belgium and I live here. And at that time, I had COVID. So I was video calling her, you know. And then all of a sudden, I get a call from my brother, stepdad, that, you know, she's got to a point now, she's deteriorating. I don't think there's anything much more we can do. You know, she's on her last legs, basically. I said, right, okay, well, I'm going to sort out, get an emergency passport and come out there. I want to see her. Because I hadn't seen her previous, because due to COVID and my husband being ill before, I hadn't seen my mum for 4 years. So that was really hard. So I'm thinking, right, I need to get out there. And so I emailed her thing and they said, yeah, just fill in this form, blah, blah, blah. And then gets a phone call saying, unfortunately, the Belgian country will not allow you to enter due to you recently having COVID. You need to be 6 weeks free from it. So that was just like a stab in the heart. That was just like, oh my God, you know, no way, there's no way. Yeah, not now. So that was really hard because I was in such a state. I had to ring my brother.
Yeah, and
They
it
were
was
upset.
because at first the boundaries were closed and you couldn't go. And then the boundaries were open again, but they still didn't allow other people inside the hospital. So it still wasn't any use for you to come over there. And it was hazardous for your mom because of the chemo that she would get in contact with whatever bacteria and viruses were out there. So that's why you didn't go sooner. And then, of course,
Yeah,
when
exactly. Yeah.
you weren't allowed back in the country again, or back in, you weren't allowed to go there. And this
Because
was, and this was devastating because I remember, like, I can just, drive over there, and I'm there in like under 2 hours, an hour and a half. That was no use. You didn't needed to be there. So all I could say was, okay, reach out to her and do a video call. And fortunately, that's had become the norm. That at least that was being done.
I was quite upset because when I was told she had that literally days, if days, on the Sunday was my birthday, the 27th of February. And what I didn't realise until after, that she didn't have chemo because she didn't pass on my birthday. She knew if she'd had, not chemo, sorry, morphine, because she was worried if she'd had the morphine the day before, she would pass on my birthday. But on my actual birthday, my brother, they all got there, they were talking to her, there was no response. So my nephew video called me, said, oh, yeah, it's Nan. She's sleeping, unfortunately, she won't, she might not say anything because she's not waking up. And so I just went, hello, Mum, it's Joe, I love you. And all of a sudden, her eyes went wide open and she mouthed because she couldn't talk, I love you too. And that was the best birthday gift ever. And that will always be with me.
Yeah.
That was just amazing,
So fast forward
And
for a sec. So then it was my birthday, March 7th on a Monday. And that Sunday night, from Sunday on Monday, at first, the friend Hugh had lost her husband so quickly.
yeah,
They were only married for a little while. Well,
six,
she got
six
drunk.
months, 4 months, no, December, yeah, 4 months after she married.
Yeah. So, very, very short amount of time, only a couple of months. So, um, so she wanted to step out. And well, I've told you a little bit about how that has influenced me when others did. What I didn't tell you about is I've had several clients on Suicide Watch, and some of them are still on the verge that I need to be careful what they're about to do or not. So you called me and we talked for an hour, 2 hours with your friend.
You talk
And
about taking pills and stuff. She
yeah,
wants some.
so she wanted to pop pills. That's what she basically said. And so I persuaded her to. Well, at first we started to
She
talk
was
about.
drunk. She was drunk. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
down.
she had been washing down 3 bottles,
Mm.
which will do the trick. And alcohol and medication is very dangerous. And let's say that straight away. Um, so you're not allowed to mix those two up because you never know what it does to your system. Um, but we got to talk, and of course, the first thing she said, I lost my husband, I lost everything. She lost her job. Well, she's on sick leave as a result, because it's very traumatic. It's very traumatic for you too. Losing someone you love due to COVID. And that's what I loved about Grey's Anatomy. They showed what it did with the kids. It was all seen from the perspective of all the people surrounding them, not just from the hospital. And that was amazing. Um, but and then of course the next day, early morning, um, I just gotten back to sleep. You called me, and I was in no shape or whatever to pick up the phone. And then another hour later, I got called again. And this time that wasn't you, but I didn't know it was you. But it was one of my clients who, of course, was in a very bad state of mind. Um, and so I got him to calm down. So I don't know what mission I was on in those 24 hours. And then I
And it
saw
was your birthday.
yeah, and then I saw your text, and it was like, oh my God, this is live streaming right now. So I saw the final minute of your mom's funeral, and of course that same day I started experiencing my first COVID symptoms, sneezing all the time. So yeah, it was a great day that day, and because of the self test and the home test, I didn't know I was contagious. So I really thought it was an allergy. So on Monday, I had dinner, with one. I had apple pie with someone else. I was talking to against someone who was experiencing all these mental problems. So I was around a lot of people actually. And then on Tuesday, I was with a friend, and we always keep our distance. So even though the rules say you don't have to keep your distance, I still wash my hands. I still disinfect them. I still keep my distance. And yes, despite all that, I did catch COVID because I was at a gay club. And even though I was next to the door, it didn't matter. And even though I wasn't close to any people, it didn't matter. I got it. Whereas the friend who asked me to go there didn't get it at all. But yes, that was a nice birthday present. And of course, I was a little bit shocked when I went on Wednesday to get tested, and then in the afternoon I got the results back, and it literally said, "Okay, you've tested positive." And by the time I knew the difference between a normal cold and a normal allergy, and what I was experiencing. Um, so in that week, that's when you broke down, basically losing your mom. And so I started taking over for you on uh, on your fan page. So fortunately, Instagram has this wonderful feature. It's called Collaborate, Invite Collaborator. So I posted it on my page. I tagged you as collaborator, and then you could post it on your page, which was kind of cool. And I like doing little clips and all that stuff, so it was nice to do it. But I did notice, and I was a little bit conflicted. Like, okay, so here I am I am about speaking out, giving a voice to others. I'm about inclusion, but people don't know this. So how am I going to explain that suddenly there is this actor Jason Begay and all those little reels on there, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and so. Um, I already wanted to do a show about Jason because we've seen what he's done for Syrian people. Um, but yesterday, I don't know what exactly made us decide to do it, but at some point I was like, okay, maybe we should discuss how those series have helped us get through trauma. Because from your mom, you basically reminded me of what happened to my mom. So, so your mom died of cancer, of course, which is very difficult to watch because you basically see someone, lose all their muscle, all their fat. It's, there's hardly anything left. Um, any moment you want to jump in, just do so, please. But if you say no, it's too hard, just go on, then I'll continue on. Um, and so my mom died a year and a month before your mom did. So my mom died on February 1st, 2021. And we did a live with Ellen talking about COVID and how that has impacted all our lives, including when people were not feeling good. And what helped me immensely was not a One Chicago show, but it was a similar one, which was 911. And I was watching that very first season, and the dispatcher over there, she had a mom um, who actually was experiencing dementia. So at times she didn't recognize her, at times she didn't know who she was. She could get these violent outbursts. And oh my God, I shed some tears watching that show. But it also helped me because, whenever something would happen, I was like, yeah, I know that. I understand you. Oh, yeah. There was constantly this recognition like, oh, see, I'm not crazy. It does happen because my environment, and that's probably what you're still running into, and we're talking about my brother mainly, but also about other people. Um, those people, they're very good actors. They don't want anyone to know that something is wrong with them. And so only the ones close to them who are trying to help them, they basically lash out to them. It's the ones you love that get hurt the most. Um, and I was there a lot. So I got uh, the short end of it, I believe is the right expression. Um, so yeah, it reminded me of a lot of things, and that's actually how we got to discuss. Like, okay, maybe we should talk about the impact certain shows have had. So we started talking. Chicago Med was again here, streaming on TV, um, and I was watching it, and I was like, oh, now I'm curious what this did for you when you were watching it. Um, because we discussed Chicago PD. We haven't here on the show yet, which we will do in a little bit, but we hadn't discussed Chicago Med and what it meant for you to see all those people in those hospitals. And like I said, a lot of people didn't believe me. Then again, it were friends who pointed out to me what was going on with my mom, which allowed me to understand it a little bit better. Um, but how was it for you? Because did you run into a lot of people who didn't believe you?
Oh, yeah, I've come across quite a few. I actually deleted quite a few on Facebook as well, who were very, very anti-COVID when um, my mum died. And I put up a big post because it went viral. It got shared. It was, oh my God, it got shared over, I think, 75k my post because it was in the early stages. And that's when I went on the news, TV, talking about it, obviously due to because it was very early, and he died on Easter Sunday, which is Christ Day here. Which there was only 12 people that actually died on Easter Sunday. My husband was one of them. Because I'm actually doing another television one in a couple of weeks. I'm also doing because it's like 2 years.
Yeah, so
Um,
he did some television shows or interviews on
mm,
television.
yeah, done
Yeah,
quite a
give
few
it a little bit.
magazines, yeah, and magazines, newspapers from America, Canada, Australia, and quite a lot of countries as well. And one of the person who I've known for a long while. Oh, all these anti posts going up. Yeah, this statistics and this is it's all a thing. The government are just doing it. They're scared.
Okay, Joe, you
Oh my
just
God,
froze.
sorry, my daughter calling.
You just froze.
Oh,
Yeah, you're good again. You're good to go.
can
Just watch the mic a little bit. I don't know why, but sometimes when you get really emotional, it's kind of distorted the sound.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very
I
well.
can't hear you
You
for some
can?
reason.
Oh no. Oh no. I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
But I can.
Let me go off and come back on. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, of course, with live stream. You never know what's going to happen with the connection. Um, but to get back to what we've been talking about, this is the perfect moment for this, of course. Is our goal with this show today um, is about speaking out how certain traumas um, have been not so much relived, but yes, relived and touched upon um, by watching certain television series more closely and seeing what really happened, making it understandable. Um, Actually, I use it a lot as an example for other people. Things I watch, um, and to say, okay, this is how things work. And there she is again. There she is. Yeah.
Sorry, I just couldn't hear you. You just went
No, no,
that.
no, stop. That's how you sound. So
Oh,
can we get
can
you
you?
back again? Can you go? Yeah, just leave and then come back. That's not nice to say. Leave. She's my co-host, and I have to say leave. Yeah, I'll probably see her waving again in a little bit. Um, but yes, the what we've noticed, and that's what Joe is going to share in a little bit. Okay, let's try.
Hello.
No, it's not good. Still not good. Um,
What is it like loud?
well, you have this high pitched sound as if you're in a cartoon. So you're
Do you like?
using your you're
I'll
using
take yeah. I'll take these off. Hold on.
yeah. Let's see. I don't think that's going to
Is
make
that
it.
better?
No.
All
Oh,
right.
either I've got two questions. Can you either restart your phone or use Chrome?
All right. I use Chrome. I'll turn you off.
Ah, I just love her dearly, And I think the whole trauma thing also has bonded us. For those who don't know, I'm a coach. I'm also a therapist, and I teach to people how certain things work. Having worked very closely with other clients who have been traumatized and having experienced losing a number of people to um, depression and other stuff. So it's what I've learned is that it's important to talk about these kind of topics. They're not easy topics, but for those who need it, they will find this show. They'll find it on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever it is, and they'll be able to watch it, and hopefully they'll will recognize certain things, and maybe they will even go and watch those shows, because those shows can really help processing, because they have been filming up personal. So let's see, there she is again.
How about now?
No. Oh,
I don't know what it is.
you're still Minnie Mouse. So did you restart your phone?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm
And,
on Chrome as well.
and you're on Chrome. Oh my God.
Sweet.
Mm, I don't know. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? If I end this, then that's not going to be the good solution either. Um, we might, if this is not going to work, I might say it's enough for today, and we might continue on next week. Although the good part is still coming, which is linked to Chicago PD. And so at some point, and that really struck me, there are a couple of seasons um, which are they have very dramatic endings. Um, those final episodes per season, and well, Joe can probably tell you a little bit better about it, but it's about losing loved ones, and also the rage that Hank Voight is expressing. Okay, let's try.
Hello.
No, I'm going to try something else. Okay, do it again.
Hello?
No, 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 no. Uh, so you restarted your phone, didn't work.
No.
You
Put it
used
on Google.
you used Chrome, didn't work.
Can't
Um,
understand it. They was working fine, wasn't they? Just all of a sudden.
yeah, it's not that the volume isn't good. It's like you have this high pitched voice. So there's something off with the transmission.
Let's
Yeah.
try.
Well, hopefully that will be a restart. I don't know. I mean, if I were to do a re when the page gets refreshed, a refresh of the page, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose all of you. But I might try and do so as a last resort. So there she is again. So she's quick restarting her phone. Uh,
Hello?
no. So do you actually power your phone off totally? That it really has to
I
start?
did the first time, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not working. Okay. I'm going to refresh my page, see what happens if we get to it again, and otherwise I'll just start it back up again. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, um, then we'll continue on next week about what Chicago PD has meant for you.
Yeah.
So
While you're doing that, I'll restart my phone again.
yeah, that's good. That's good. And
Okay.
really, really like battery dead.
Yes.
Dead.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I think I'm back again. But this time my camera is off. Yeah, and there it is back on. So you probably hear me again. So maybe this makes a difference. I don't know. It's like I just have to try and see what works. Um, yeah. So I'm curious what it has been like for you. If you actually experienced this trauma too, and you know what I like about One Chicago, and I know Joe does too, is they have some really good shows where they are very specific with what they're showing, and I know it's not that different from, well, I don't know about Grey's Anatomy, but I do know that, for instance, the firefighters in Chicago Fire, they actually work with real firefighters, and policemen work with real policemen over there, and including the same uniforms and all that stuff. So they're really on top of what's going on, and that makes it, and they also talk to the people. So the stories they get told, those are the stories that get shared on the show. And yeah, it's, for me it has been very cathartic, I suppose. um, you know, seeing all these things and being able to process it bit by bit. So going to the one who plays Hank Floyd, Jason McGay. Um, Hank Floyd is, like I said, he does the wrong things for the right reasons. And he can have some pretty violent outbursts. And of course, the whole, um, I guess that when you go from season 1 up till now, which is season 9, there's this whole, like, okay, Chicago PD needs to change. Um, Less violence. Is that going to work? Oh, I don't think this is good. Try. Say something to us. Speak. This now freeze up.
Can you hear me now?
Oh no. No, it's
Still not. I don't know what it is.
I'm just going to kick you out for a second, and then oh, I'm going to mute you, but that didn't work either. So resetting didn't work. No, I can already hear it. It's not working.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong.
Edit mix settings. Oh, echo cancellation. Okay, try it again.
What? Hello? Hello?
Okay, keep talking now.
Hear me? Hello? Hello, hello, hello.
I'm sorry. It's still not working.
Oh, it was such a good pro. It was doing really well. Let's have a look at my
Yeah.
settings. See what's my settings? Audio.
Yeah, you do sound funny.
What
Though.
about now? Can you hear me now?
Well, I can still hear you. I can hear you all the time. It's just you're
Oh,
like me.
I
You have
sound awful.
voice.
Oh, code cancellation, automatic adjust. Yeah, I don't know.
Now the only thing we can do is end this broadcast, and then
Carry on next week. Yeah.
and then either next week or I'll try and see if I can get you back in with a new one, and then we'll see what happens. That's basically all I can do. So on that note, I either going to see you in a little bit, and otherwise we are going to see you next week, and we are going to talk about the role of Hank Floyd, Chicago PD, and trauma.
This is why Hank doesn't want me to talk about him.
That's it. Okay.